But hold on. You say you would go to 3.5% immediately of GDP. You cannot afford to do that with 1%, a 1 penny rise in income tax. That's fantasy economics like Starmer Reeves. Let's speak to Tobias Ellwood, former Tory Foreign and Defence Minister. Tory Ellwood, before we get on to what I would call this Labour shambles, do you accept that previous Tory governments are responsible for the hollowing out of our armed forces?
Yes, 100%. And firstly, well done on your summary there. I would only add that this investment plan has been positive in one sense in exposing the delta between our ability to defend ourselves and the threats coming over the hill. But as you've articulated, we now learn there's not enough money, there's no political will, and the prospect of conflict on so many fronts now increases. If you remove the date itself from the Defence Investment Plan, I read it in full last night, you actually look with a very plausible plan to modernise our ability to deter and fight, given the recent transformation of warfare. And that transformation was best demonstrated recently by America, able to attack over 1,000 Iranian targets in a single day. And that's achieved by linking your sensors, your real-time intelligence via AI to all your kill platforms. That is what modern warfare is all about, and that is what we aspire to do. The only problem is when you read the document, according to this plan, we don't reach that capability until 2035. And even the Prime Minister has actually made it very, very clear. He expects Russia to attack part of NATO by 2030. The NATO Secretary General has said the same. So has the head of MI6 as well. Our Navy is spending a third of its time dealing with threats from Russia as we stand today. So the idea that you can create our own kill web, our own hybrid Navy, our own tanks and ships, and even the common combat vessel won't be ready until the mid-30s. By that time, it simply is too late. So I accept more should have been done in my time, but the threats are now here today, and the conversation with the nation needs to move up a gear because it's the people, the British people, that needs to demand from government to say we're now willing to spend more on defence. If we don't, we will learn the hard way of the consequences. Our adversaries will take advantage of our weakness.
Right. I understand all that, and I understand the dangers as well. But I just want to be clear that one of the reasons why there is so much to do, so much more now needs to be spent, is because the previous Conservative governments, you slashed defence spending by 22% in real terms between 2010 and 2016, 22%, and then only went for modest increases thereafter. So there is a desperate need, whoever is in power, is to make up for the mess you left behind.
Yeah, you want to make that point, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be made. It doesn't help us in our concern.
Well, it has. Do you agree with it? But do you agree with it?
I do agree.
Because if you don't, it's hard to take seriously what you say. If you understand the mess you left behind, then we can listen to lessons you've learned and what you would now do. But if you don't take responsibility for that, then it's not so easy to do that.
For the third time, I accept that more should have been done. The threats were on a different scale than they were today. And after the end of the Cold War, not just Britain, but all nations downsized how much money they're investing in defense. I look back at when I first called for us to move to 3% spending. And I wrote an article for the Times in June 2019. As chair of the Defense Committee, I and others on all parties indeed push for more. But the bottom line is, whether it be a Conservative government or indeed Labour today, you're not going to get an increase in defence spending when there's no political mileage to do so, because electorally it's dangerous. Because as I go back to the people, if there is pressure, as we heard from Andy Burnham, on welfare spending and so forth, on pushing for growth and so forth, that's where the money will focus on rather than on defence. My argument, the argument made today, is that our defence and security and our economy are symbiotically interlinked. The attacks on our economy, such as cyber attacks, undersea cables, will affect the Treasury coffers, will affect our growth. So if you don't upgrade our defence, our economy is hit, and there's no money for government departments right across Whitehall, let alone just defence alone. It's cheaper to invest in defence now rather than wait for conflict to arrive on our doorsteps.
Right. Our NATO allies will not be impressed that there's no timeline for getting to 3% of GDP on defence, much less 3.5% of GDP, although this government has publicly committed us to both. When would you get to these two targets, and how would you pay for it?
I would pay for it by doing what we did back in 1937, which is the moment we're now replicating, by getting all the leaders together in a room, ring fencing an increase in defence spending, by putting up income tax by 1%. Now, to the average taxpayer, that's the price of a cup of coffee a day. And if we say and explain to the British people why this needs to be done to protect us, because we've entered a new era of insecurity, you take the nation with you. But as long as we play political football with this, with nobody willing to make those tough decisions, yes, of course, there's money to be taken from welfare. Welfare in 1990, I think, was around 5%. It sort of matched defense spending. Defense spending went down. Welfare is now ballooning at 13%. So clearly there's some money to be gained there. Pensions as well, the triple lock and so forth. But it's not enough. You touched on at the beginning, we're probably missing by half the amount of money we need to make our armed forces, our security, our defense as safe as we need to be. And you mentioned NATO. When you move the nuclear deterrent from how much we're spending, we slide to 13th place in NATO. All
Indeed.
The other countries,
No, I made that point.
Closer to Europe, already touching on 5%. So, as I say, we are making our country more vulnerable, and we will learn the hard way. I suspect we'll see some form of attack during the NATO summit, because this is what Putin likes to do, gain attention by riling us. And the absence of our capabilities is now for all to see, not just our allies, but adversaries as well.
I asked you when would you hit 3% and then 3.5? You didn't tell me.
Well, immediately. How long does it take to create one of those platforms? The removal of the Type 83 is simply daft. You need to do this urgently. This is what I'm hoping.
You would go to 3.5% immediately?
I can't stress the dangers that are coming over the hill. We will need, from my perspective, from where I sit,
the answer's either yes or no. Would you or wouldn't you?
Let me finish my point.
No, you need to answer the question.
I will do.
When would you go to 3.5%?
I just said immediately, and also to articulate the dangers.
Okay, right. Okay, well, let me take that. Hold on. Okay, I understand the dangers. I'm in no doubt about the urgency. I get that. But you say you would go to 3.5%.
I would introduce.
Right, but hold on. You say you would go to 3.5% immediately of GDP. You cannot afford to do that with 1%, a 1 penny rise in income tax. That's fantasy economics like Starmer Reeves.
No, it's not. I've done the calculations. And when you take some money away from welfare, you look at pensions as well, that would get you on the move. If you even move up to 3%, the military couldn't spend it all straight away. So, of course, this would need to be stagnated into the system itself. The point, though, is the critical aspect here is taking the British people with you, explaining the consequences of what happens if we don't invest. So a lot of this is the contracts that are 10-year plans. The point is that one penny rise in income tax. The point is that 1 penny rise in income tax doesn't get you what you're wanting. It's as simple as that. It's about another 4 billion, 5 billion a year. That gets you nowhere near 3.5%. Nowhere near. No, it's a lot more. I don't have the calculations in front of me. I've worked out what needs to be done, and there is absolutely a requirement that can get us there. But I'm not the economist here. What I am is the person that's making it very clear the threats are coming forward. And if we don't act today, then I'm afraid we're going to learn the hard way. But I disagree with your own calculations. I've spoken about this with Mohammed El Arian, who is an economist, and between us, we worked out a calculation that would get us to 3%, and that needs to be done.
Okay, so how much would income tax raise? How much would a 1p raise?
Well, the next time I come on your program, I'm happy to share the actual.
You don't know, do you? You advocate a policy, but you don't know what it would raise.
Sir, I'm making it very, very clear that we need to raise income tax or other forms of tax raises in order to pay for this. The fact that I don't know the exact figures today, I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting to answer that. I'm making it very clear. We need to change and we need to move now. Happy to come on another
No,
time.
you've made
and go
that.
through the figures with you.
Right. We've already,
Happy to
I'm
do
sorry to
that,
interrupt you, we've already overrun, but please come back because I've got a ton more questions for you, including some of the same ones. Tobias Ellwood there, speaking on defence matters, former Conservative Foreign and Defence Minister.